Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to another video. Now in today's video, I'm going to be showing how to use perfect pearls with water to create some really cool shimmery watercolor effects on your cards. We're creating 3 different cards using perfect pearls to share a couple of different ways to use them with water to get some really different results on each card. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. Alright, so let's start off with what you'll need for today's video and whenever you use perfect pearls. So you're obviously going to need the perfect pearls. I like the perfect pearl color and a couple of the metallics, but they also have a bunch of different colors and I'll show you kind of how to use them in today's video. Now I like smaller brushes as well, especially when you're doing water techniques like we are for today's video. So I have kind of a smaller one and a medium brush, but you can also have a larger one if you're doing backgrounds. And then I have this big brush, and I'm not using this in today's video, but whenever I use perfect pearls, this surface sweep is what I use to dust off any excess. And then you're going to need a little bit of sticky ink. Again, I didn't use it too much in today's video except for when I was embossing, but I like either the perfect medium or VersaMark ink. And then also, this was super important for today's video, you're going to need some water and a spray bottle. And I like this distress spray because it can give a fine mist or a, larger spray. So I like that one because it gives some really cool effects. Now I'm going to go in for the first 2 cards with black cardstock, and I love this alcohol ink cardstock because it is super dark black and it's nice and velvety smooth. So I save this stuff for whenever I'm doing kind of a larger background of black cardstock. This stuff is amazing. So I'm going to go in and take my background stamp. This one is the lovely Lilies background stamp, and I love these ones that are kind of floral or have a large area to color in for when I'm doing watercolor with perfect pearls. So this one's a peel apart background stamp, so I'm just going to peel apart the design and use the half of it with the lilies. So I'm going to ink this up with a little bit of clear sticky ink, which is my VersaMark ink pad, and then I will set my black cardstock on top and give some good pressure all the way around to make sure to transfer the image down. So once I've done that and pressed in every single area, I'm going to lift that off and then apply a layer of clear embossing powder on top. And that clear ink is going to hold on to the embossing powder nicely as we sprinkle it on. Then I'm going to go in and heat set this quickly, and this is the magic of embossing powder. That clear is going to turn nice and shiny and kind of turn the exact same color as the black cardstock. So in the end, it's almost going to look like a no-line watercolor look. Now I'm taking a little bit of cardstock here, just a little tiny strip, and folding that in half. This is going to create a little bit of a scoop so we can get our perfect pearls out of the jars here. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the pearl. Now you could use a little bit more or less depending on how pearly you want your color to be, but this is what's going to give it the pigment and shine. So I use just a little bit of a scoop of every single color that I want to use. And for this one, I used a lot of different shades. Now later on in the video, I'll show just how to use the perfect pearl color, but for this, since we're using the black cardstock, I thought it was awesome to use all of these different shades of colors. So I'm going to spray those down with a little bit of a water, and you'll already see them kind of start to move and turn into a watercolor. And then I'm going to spray some water down to the side so I can pick it up as well. So I'm starting off by picking up a little bit of the perfect gold color and adding that to the center of one of the flowers with a little bit of water. And when you take the water, you're just going to bring it over to your perfect pearl and then kind of work it into that color, and it'll turn into a really awesome pearlescent liquid. Now the cool part about having a bunch of different colors of perfect pearls is they have the exact pearl kind of pigment of that color. So instead of just a color with a white pigment on top, the perfect pearls is a colored pigment. So it's going to have that really beautiful shine in whatever color you lay down. And it's really just so stunning on top of this black cardstock. When you're laying it down at first, you can't tell, that it has a bunch of shine, but as that starts to dry back with the water, you'll definitely see it as we continue to work. So I'm going to kind of work and blend these together. On each flower, I did about 2 different colors of the perfect pearls pigment and mixed those together to create the really beautiful shading and shine. So it's just like painting with a watercolor or any other paint. You're going to bring the first color in, and while that is still wet, you can bring the next color in and blend them together. This technique definitely takes a little bit of time, but if you like normal coloring, you're definitely going to like this technique as well. But I'm going to for sure share lots of other techniques that aren't as detail and color oriented later on in today's video. But you can see I'm just finishing off the last couple of flowers here, and also just like regular coloring, I do have a little bit of a rag off to the side, so that in between each color of pearl, I can dip it into a little bit of water and clean my brush to make sure that the colors stay nice and clean and pure. Now for the green, I'm going to take some of those green colors and mix them together. I liked that darker and light green, but I kind of wanted to create an emerald green right in between. So I loaded up my brush with lots of Perfect Pearl pigment and started going into the card. And also, just like regular inks and watercolors, with these pearls, if you add more pearl and less water, you're going to get even more shine. And if you add more water to it, you're going to get less shine and a little bit watered down. So definitely kind of play around with the different intensities of it. The more powder you use, the more beautiful shine you're going to get. So once that's all dry, I'll lift it into the light here, and you could just see when I tilt that into the light, it almost looks like stained glass. It is just so stunning and illuminating. So then I'm going to go in for the sentiment and use the Sentimental Flowers stamp set. I love this one because it has some really great kind of handwritten sentiments and also those larger flowers that I love to use too. I found that I liked the thank you sentiment best, so I'm going to take that, ink it up with a little bit of clear sticky embossing ink, and then stamp it down onto some vellum. I stamped it down onto vellum because I didn't want it to cover up too much of the card, and since vellum is a little bit transparent, it's going to make the sentiment stand out without covering up the rest of the card and image too much. So I'll heat set that with a little bit of white embossing powder, and then I'm going to go in with my Fiskars Spring Assist scissors. These are my favorite for fussy cutting, and I'm just going right around that sentiment, leaving a little bit of a border all the way around. But this is another thing I like to do if I want to make sure that things aren't getting covered as much. It's a great way to just kind of highlight the sentiment without taking away from the rest of the card. So then I'm going to take a little bit of tape runner. A lot of people ask how to adhere vellum down, and honestly, I add a little bit of tape runner behind some of the embossed areas, and I find you can't see it at all. It's a little bit better for me than liquid adhesive because it doesn't seep out at all. So then that is the finished card. I love how that sentiment didn't cover up much, but it still stands out, and that coloring is just stunning on top of the black cardstock with the perfect pearls. So next I'm going to take another piece of this velvety smooth black cardstock, and I'm going to spray the rest of the leftovers of the perfect pearls that we had. I didn't want any to go to waste, and I decided to create kind of a galaxy background by just dipping my background into the perfect pearls. So this is just like kind of ink smooshing, except the perfect pearls have a, wherever it hits the surface, where it's a little bit more powder, it's going to kind of stay there and be super vibrant, and the rest is going to kind of create a wash of that pearl in the background. So you'll see as I'm drying it here, it creates a really nice stunning pearl effect, and I went back in to create a couple of different layers by drying in between and then dipping it back in. Then I'm going to dry it again, and once it's completely dry, all of that pearl comes to life, and you can see, like I was talking about, there's a lot more concentrated areas and then some areas of just kind of shiny pearl watercolor. Now I'm going to go in with a heart die cut and die cut that out in an area that I liked. So I decided I liked that area, so I'll put that right through my die cutting machine. And then I'm going to use that as the background for my card, and I love that it kind of had a space theme to it. So I'm going to go in with the Supermom stamp set. Speaking of, I love this stamp set, and I thought it would be a great time to use it for some Mother's Day cards, and that space theme just went along perfectly with this. So I'm going to take the mom image that has her flying with a cape on, and I'll stamp that down into some stark white cardstock with jet black archival ink, which is a nice waterproof black ink. And if you guys have seen one of my videos before, you know that I like to throw a little bit of clear embossing powder over jet black archival ink. It stays wet for just long enough, and then I'm going to heat set it, and that will hold in my watercolor really nicely by creating a little bit of kind of a well for the watercolors to sit in. So I'm going to create a little palette of inks here by taking my Simon Hurley Create ink pads and smooshing them down onto my glass craft sheet here. Then I can pick it up from there and start my watercoloring. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of water and my paintbrush, and I'm not going to do this for too long, but I wanted to let you guys in on my watercolor process here. So I like to use just a brush with some water off to the side so I can really control how much water I add. And for the first layer of any watercolor project, I always like to add a layer of water down before I get started. This makes it so that the ink isn't going to seep into the cardstock right away, and it'll give me a little bit more time for blending on the surface there. So then I can go in and bring in some of my colors. I always start off with a little bit more water and a lighter wash of the color. And then when I want to go in and add any shading down onto the surface, I'll either take a little bit of a darker color, or I can dip right back into the exact same color with a little bit less water and dip that down onto the surface. That's going to create a more concentrated version of the color and give some really nice depth and dimension and shading on the image. Now I'm going to go into the hair here and do the exact same thing, adding a light brown wash, and then I'll go in with less water to add a little bit of shadows and dimension to the image. So that's pretty much what I do, and it's pretty easy, but really gives some great results. I cut that out, added it down into my card, and stamped a great Mother's Day sentiment from that same Supermom stamp set, but I just love how this came together with that fun nebula background. Alright, for the next background, I'm going to use this Swirly Ferns Peel Apart background stamp from Hurley Create, and I'll go in and use my VersaMark clear sticky ink pad again to do a little bit of embossing. This is no shocker, but I love to do lots of emboss resist techniques when I'm going in to do some watercoloring, and since today's video is all about Perfect Pearls watercolor, we're doing a lot of embossing. So I'm going to lay down a layer of clear embossing powder over top of that now, and then I'll heat set it until it turns nice and clear and shiny. And you only want it to heat set it just until it turns clear. If you overheat it, it'll do some weird things, but I wanted to mention that for great embossing results. Now after that, I'm going to go in with more Hurley Create inks, and here I'm just going to ink blend a background. Now I want some really saturated and vibrant results, so I ended up going in with my ink blending tool using the new round domed blending foam. Now I've been loving these because it doesn't give you any harsh marks, so if that's something you struggled with, these are really great for you, but it also gives that really great depth and dimension with lots of color onto the surface. I really love vibrant colors, and these give that with little to no effort because they put so much ink down onto the surface and give you lots of control. So it's something I've been really loving lately, and I wanted to share that with you guys. I've pretty much changed all my ink blending tools to this rounded foam just because it gives such great results and lots of vibrant color. We needed lots of vibrant color for this because we're going to turn it into kind of a watercolor. So here I'm using just the Perfect Pearl color of Perfect Pearls. And I'm going to take that same scoop that I used earlier, scoop out a little bit of that pearl color, and then throw it into one of my distress sprayers. I have one just separate for this because I use it so often. And I'll throw that in with a little bit of water. Now the more water you add, the less pearl you're going to have, and it all depends on how much pearl you add into the water as well. But that gives some really awesome pearlescent shine, as you can see in there. You're just going to want to shake it up a little bit every time you use it, and then spray it over the surface to get a kind of pooling effect. Now I sprayed quite a bit on here, but you can spray less if you want a more subtle shimmer. But that water is going to react with my ink pads and kind of make it move on the surface to make it look like a watercolor, as you see there, since my inks react with water. And once that background is all completely dry, you can really see all of that amazing shimmer that comes out. And of course, this is that pearlescent shine, but if you want to do certain colors of the shimmer, you can use the colored Perfect Pearls too. I just love all the awesome shine that that gives. Now for the next card that I'm going to do, I ended up using the Prom dress background stamp, and I'm going to ink that up again with a little bit of clear sticky VersaMark ink. Then I'm going to add some good pressure down onto my stark white cardstock to transfer it, and I'll throw a layer of clear embossing powder over top, no surprise here. I'll heat set that until it turns nice, clear, and shiny, and then we can get started with the rest of our card. So here I'm doing a little bit more watercolor. I added down a rainbow assortment of my Hurley Create inks onto my surface, but this time I'm using the Perfect Pearls spray with just the Perfect Pearl color in it as a kind of water substitute. So you saw me watercolor with my Hurley Create inks earlier to color in the Supermom, and this time I'm going to go in and do the exact same steps, except I'm using the Perfect Pearls water instead of my water. This is going to give a nice subtle shine throughout the whole background and really create that nice pearlized shimmer on top of everything I'm coloring in. It's really fun to try out, and of course you could always spray the Perfect Pearls on top after normal watercolor, but I like that this gives a more subtle shine throughout since you're just using it a little bit here and there. And then it's also a little bit different than the first technique that we did because you don't have to go in and add a bunch of different colors of the Perfect Pearl. This instead is going to give you a nice color with the Simon Hurley Create inks, and it's going to give you a little bit of a white kind of pearly shimmer on top because we're just using that one perfect pearl color of the perfect pearls. So I'm just going in and blending my different colors together, and here I'm going to go in and shade all the leaves in using Psych, and then I'm going in with a little bit of Tropical Tango and blending those together to create a darker color. Now, like I said, this is the exact same as normal watercoloring with your ink pads. It just adds a nice subtle shimmer all throughout the entire background. This ended up being one of my mom's favorites because although you can't really see a ton of the shimmer on screen here, like I said, it's a little bit more subtle, it really packs a punch in real life and creates a nice shimmer all the way across that's really elegant. To finish off the card, I'm cutting out a heart die from the center of my background, and I'm keeping both sides of the inside and out. And then I'm going to adhere the background that I've cut down onto a top folding card base. This is using some Gina K colored cardstock. And I've also cut that same colored cardstock 3 times with the same heart die. So I'm going to layer those up using a little bit of tape runner or liquid adhesive and press them together. And once I've added the 3 together, I'm going to add a little bit more adhesive and add the other die cut piece right on top. And I just kind of pinch my fingers together and make sure that everything is nice and lined up before I really press it down thoroughly. Then I'll add adhesive down onto the back of that, and I'll piece it right in, do a little bit of a die cut inlay on the center of my card, and add that down. I love how this was able to keep the whole background still intact there, but add a little bit of depth and dimension to it and make it a little bit more interesting. Now I'm going to take the Sentimental Flowers stamp set and find which sentiment works best. I like to kind of shift it around with that clear stamp, and I ended up going with Thinking of You, so I stamped that down onto the card and finished it off like that. I love the subtle shimmer of this one and how we die cut that heart with a little bit of dimension to finish off the card. Alright, I hope you guys really enjoyed that video. If you did, leave a comment down below letting me know which card was your favorite from today's video and which technique you'd like to try out. And give this video a big thumbs up and click that subscribe button down below so you never miss another card making and crafting video like this one from me. Alright guys, I'll see you super soon. Have a great day. Bye!